Alright guys, we are back for another Dokkan battle video. I want to continue sort of this like guide series we're doing for the last couple of stages that are going to get added to the red zone for part 3 of Global's 7th anniversary. Now, the first 3 stages I did videos on, Broly, Bojack, and Omega Shenron, those I think are the truly tough stages of the red zone. Those are the ones that are going to give you a lot of trouble. Those are the ones where you could potentially just get, destroyed in a very unfair manner by the bosses. It's just, that's where everyone's going to scream, artificial difficulty, oh my god! Even though, like, dude, what are they supposed to do? Like, make the events weak? Like, if they're going to raise difficulty, yeah, the numbers are going up. Oh my god! The numbers went up in a number game! I can't! It's artificial! Like, come on, man. Okay, just real fast. The one thing I would agree with, artificial difficulty to me would be Battlefield Omega Shenron. You could not use items, and he would lock you, and you could do nothing about it. There's literally no counterplay whatsoever. There's nothing you can do. Literally nothing. In the red zone, they do locks and stuff like that, but you got items, you got support memories, blah, blah, blah. The only thing I ever consider an artificial difficulty in Dokkan, actually, is Battlefield Omega Shenron. Everything else, you have, like, workarounds, things you can do. Battlefield Omega Shenron was, again, literally nothing you could do. It's just you get locked, oh, GG, sorry. That's it. Alright, now JANEMBA. Let's take a look at JANEMBA. The thing about JANEMBA compared to many of the last 6 bosses, JANEMBA is basically the only one that doesn't really have a gimmick. There's this great thread by Luca Dokkan going over the stats of all the different red zone bosses, right? We can go ahead and take a look at JANEMBA right here. He's got 3 phases. Well, he actually has 2 phases. The third phase is just, it's a rage mode, right? He has 1 health bar, which is 50 million. If you're curious, so you go 29 million to 50 million. Look at the difference with Broly, right? Broly then has 18, 20, 25, then 50, right? Just way more you have to go through. But the first phase of JANEMBA is just really not that bad. The only thing I would say is that, you might want int characters to deal with this JANEMBA, but that's not going to work because the strongest version of this boss is physical. So you want to avoid int characters as much as possible. If you're going to use, like, int UI Goku, it could work, right, if he's transformed. And, I've made my thoughts on int UI Goku very clear. He is he's not, like, okay or mediocre. He is horrible before he transforms, right? So you need him transformed. And then with that dodging, he could help out in a number of fights. But the thing about JANEMBA is he doesn't really have special gimmicks. He changes the field of key spheres, right? Which sometimes can hurt, sometimes it can't. The thing about JANEMBA changing key spheres, though, is that he does it before you do it, right? So if you have Tech God Goku, one of the best characters in the game for the movie Red Zone, JANEMBA will change orbs, and then God Goku will right after. So if you have orb changers, like JANEMBA's orb changing, it doesn't even do anything, right? It's not really. Maybe if you're like, okay, I'm gonna save this big group of STR orbs for the STR, Goku and Gohan exchange unit or something like that, and then he actually goes ahead and changes those or something, sure, right? But for the most part, I don't think his orb changing is something that's really going to be too much of an issue, right? He does also dodge. Now, he has the highest dodge chance, I believe, of any boss in the red zone at 10%. Personally, I've never found it to be an issue for me. I think it's because while JANEMBA's tough, he's not on the level of, like, Omega Shenron or Broly. Omega, I believe, has a 5% chance to dodge, but you feel it because of how hard he hits and how much health he has. And the fight with Omega definitely feels like a race against time. I don't really think the same about this JANEMBA fight. Many of the times, I've, done no item runs with most of the 200% teams through all these red zone stages. JANEMBA never really worries me, right? Usually I almost take a kind of a casual approach to the runs against JANEMBA often because he just doesn't have that much health compared to the other bosses. There's only 2 phases, right? Sure, his rage mode is hitting very hard. I mean, basically 1.1 million. That is ridiculously hard, but guess what? All these red zone bosses are hitting hard, man. Like, it's not, JANEMBA's not special. Like, there's nothing really separating him from just like a regular hard hitting boss, right? Yeah, like there's nothing really to go over too much. So let's look at some of the teams I used, examine the characters and how they might be effective in here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that JANEMBA does a weapon super attack. He actually does a weapon super. So, there's no like nullifying it with like the androids or anything like that. Like 19 and 20, Tech 17 and 18, they can't nullify it. And even if even LR Fusion Zamasu, he doesn't nullify weapon supers. He nullifies melee super attacks is what he does, right? So that that's something to keep in mind. But if you just have a powerful team like this android setup, right? Like JANEMBA went down pretty much without effort. This like build right here pretty much could just sweeps the entire red zone. Because what you're doing is you essentially have these 5 characters right here. How I would describe this team is just their supporting cell. And I don't mean directly like, oh, they've all got big bad bosses and they're giving 40% support. Not like that, but they're just kind of not dying, right? They're not dying. There are some units that give a little bit of support to Cell in here as well. But basically, this is the, let Cell carry all the damage team, and then the rest of them can tank, is how that sort of works. It should be fairly obvious why a lot of these characters work in here. 19 and 20 get very spooky towards the end, because JANEMBA starts to hit very, very hard. But one thing to keep in mind with these red zone bosses, they're all extreme class units, so you need less defense as an extreme class unit to tank the red zone bosses currently, right? Super class units need more defense to be able to tank these bosses than extreme class units do. Here's the team I use with the Goku and Gohan team. Remember that there's a couple of characters, Goku and Gohan, and then STR Ultimate Gohan, who are ridiculously effective against physical bosses. Because remember, Goku and Gohan, the Gohan gets all these buffs when he gets hit while he has guard, right? He has guard for the first 3 turns, but technically you're guarding when you're hit by type disadvantage. So STR Ultimate Gohan will, get hit by physical JANEMBA and his guard will proc, right? If it's not up. Same thing with the STR Goku and Gohan exchange unit, right? You don't have to worry. Once you get Gohan out, you're pretty much good. Because, his guard will probably be up for int JANEMBA, and then even if it wears off against physical JANEMBA, it still counts as you guarding anyway, so he's going to get all the buffs anyway, right? And the same thing with STR Ultimate Gohan. In this fight, once you get to physical JANEMBA, STR Ultimate Gohan is actually just guarding the whole rest of the way, right? And that means he gets his guaranteed additionals, right? And he's got his chance for getting the extra defensive increases and stuff like that. Very powerful character. Now, you do have to be a bit careful in this fight, bringing AGL units. EGL units can get crunched early on because JANEMBA's tech at the start. JANEMBA does do over 600,000 damage on a super attack, right? So he can one-shot you if he connects with an AGL unit, right? So it's like, I brought AGL Kid Gohan here. It was able to work out. He just gives so much ki, so much defense. And then a lot of these characters had all in the family that it was able to work. Right, but it's like, STR Ultimate Gohan and the Goku and Gohan, they're the true stars that carried this run. Tech Ultimate Gohan, of course, works against so many of these fights. What a shock. Xeno Goku can be very, very solid. This guy was just like a nice little support, and he just sort of like helped the team there. Now, the Resurrection F Blues, again, global players, these guys probably won't show up on global for quite a while. Probably October, potentially even later than that. I don't feel like this run was really that tough. Like, I'd have to go back and listen to my commentary if it was actually really tough, but I don't remember this fight being particularly difficult, right? AGL UI Goku, of course, I repeat myself to people that UI Goku can dominate all these red zone fights except for Android 13 and Broly. He is a really top tier option that people oftentimes just pretend is not good, but they live in their own fantasy world basically with that. This guy can be very impactful in a lot of these fights. AGL Golden Frieza. Remember that this character, you could not use him in the God event because he has a nuking leader skill, which they banned. They didn't let you use nuking leader skill characters in the God event. So this guy kind of flew under the radar for a long time when God event was the hardest event in the game. Still good in Extreme Super Battle Road and stuff like that. But now, we can actually use him in the red zone. He's very effective. Again, God Goku is like a must run on a lot of these fights. Unlike some of the other movie fights too, you're fighting a movie boss the whole time, right? It's not like, because against Bojack's minions, they're not movie bosses, so God Goku doesn't have his damage reduction. That's not an issue here. And then physical Super Saiyan 3 Goku is just a very beefy, powerful unit that is going to work in many of these stages. I wouldn't like the idea of using this guy against a powerful STR enemy, so oftentimes I'm not the biggest fan of taking him against, say, Broly or, Super 17 or something like that. But beyond that, I've found that this guy can be very effective just as like the last unit on the team, or just throwing him on a team. He does tend to work very well, right? The Ginyu team, we don't really have to spend a lot of time talking about it. They stomp, right? Like, guess what? The Ginyu team is ridiculous. Oh my god, so shocking, right? Like, Ginyu is just so crazy in these red zone stages. Being able to give you a scouter, being able to give you the heal, defensive stacking, he's supporting. It's just Ginyu. This team just crushes basically all the red zone stages. The only stage that can give you any trouble at all is Broly, and that's because it cancels dodge, right? That's why, which really limits Jason Birder's effectiveness. But the team is just ridiculous. Then this is the Vegeta and Trunks team that I used. Again, Vegeta and Trunks are a character that's probably not coming to global for like 6 months or so. November or December, I think Vegeta and Trunks should arrive on global Dokkan. We got a lot of the same cast of characters with powerful units here. No surprise, the 7th anniversary LRs are premium, top 5 units basically for every single stage in here, right? LR Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, you could utilize him even without like a Saiyan Roar GT character. He could still be very good. Obviously, not as good as if you've got one of those Super Saiyan 4s, but you guys get what I'm saying. And then the gods, of course, can be very effective in a lot of these fights. Then here, this is the gods team. Toss on the 3rd year anniversary LRs. The heal is always useful. Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, yeah, this is a great fight for him, actually. I do like his inclusion here. Because, again, my recommendation a lot of times for these red zone fights is you build around the toughest and final phase, which right here is JANEMBA, right? So it's like, using powerful STR characters is a good idea. So like, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, again, can be very powerful here. Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, these level of characters, right? Like, seeing a lot of global players, getting wins in the red zone, their teams resemble basically stuff like this, right? And this setup does work in here. Another character you could try in here is God Vegeta, I suppose. I have not used him on any of my runs, but because it's like, if God Vegeta's not guarding, he's gonna take massive damage, even against like this guy. Like, it's like, I don't know, like God Vegeta does tend to get pieced up for me. I don't know, man. And then finally, here's the Super Saiyan 4's run that we did. Tech Gogeta can work well in here, of course, right? Like, Tech Gogeta works well in a lot of these fights because the scouter, you get the scouter off. I think you could probably use SCR Vegeta in this fight. SCR Vegeta would take damage from JANEMBA. But like the 10-turn scouter, the big heal, stuff like that are very useful. AGL Super Vegito, remember, is kind of a sleeper option for many of these stages. You do want to be careful using him against, whatchamacallit, the first phase, Tech JANEMBA. Tech JANEMBA could destroy you if he's Super Vegito. But beyond that, Super Vegito can be very effective in here, right? Neutralizing damage. Remember that Super Vegito does also have a scouter. If your HP falls below, I believe it's 40%, he can get a scouter, which that has actually saved me before. The Super Vegito scouter can be very powerful. And then again, 3rd year anniversary LR Int Vegito in here as well. Even though, right, the final phase is physical here, Int Vegito is very powerful and can handle it. He could help you get a strong footing at the start of the fight against Tech JANEMBA, but once you transform into Super Vegito and he gets that damage reduction, you're looking good. But if you get caught with this unit right there against physical JANEMBA, you're in trouble, because the base of the 3 anniversary LR is just the Goku and Vegeta. On each side, they go down like fish, basically. They get destroyed, oftentimes by these really powerful bosses, so hopefully you will have transformed right there. But, these are a lot of good characters, good setups that potentially can, beat JANEMBA, no-item him. JANEMBA, while he's definitely a tough boss, one of the toughest in the game, I don't really feel like he's as powerful as the actual toughest fights in the game. Broly, Bojack, and Omega Shenron. They're definitely tougher, but I figured I'd still make sort of like a video guide for JANEMBA, go over his abilities, his stats, special gimmicks he has, but it's not really, he just dodges and he changes orbs, not really too much to get around, right? So, Let me know what you guys think of Janemba in the red zone. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.